Hello, so this will be just a quick video on how to set up your layouts with a very simple title block, maybe a couple different page formats, and we're going to go ahead and set up a few layers as well, just again, very starter kind of template. So when you go to the Start menu over here, there's a few default templates that are created like the AutoCAD has inches instead of centimeters. You can browse through all the templates and you can also create your own template. So that's what we're going to do today, just so you can have custom settings that you don't have to redefine every time you start a new drawing. So from here on out, we're going to create our own template and then you can customize it as you go along, as you kind of see what you like your settings to be, and maybe multiple templates, one for English and one for metric, and just the different projects and tools you need. Okay, so coming here, starting fresh, and good practice, always start out by saving your work somewhere. Choose like a nice, like Spring 25, 1304, that would be a good. So I'm going to go ahead and save this first as a DWG file, and then when we're all done, we're going to use a new file type, the DWT template. Okay, so here we are, and what we're going to do here is just use rectangles and a text tool to create a standard 11 by 8.5 inch piece of paper. So this is kind of the dimensions that we're going to use. So here we go. I'm going to say units. Let's make sure that we are in inches so that when we type in these dimensions, we'll be in inches. And I'm going to start with REC, rectangle. You can, of course, draw that from the ribbon, but it's kind of nice to start learning the shortcuts for that. So for rectangle, we go from 0, 0, and I'm going to make this as 11 on the base and then 8.5 tall. So there's our first piece of, and just to make sure that we do have the right size here, dim is what you use for all the dimensioning. So I'm going to say dim lin, and let's just add some notes on here to remind ourselves that that's going to be our 8.5 side, and this is going to be our 11 inch. Now, when you go to print something out, printers have like a little roller that it can't print to the very edge of a page. And so we're going to make another border that just shows the printable area. And I'm going to use 0.3 inches. It's usually a little bit larger than a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to create that second border with the offset command. So the offset, that is under your modify tools up here. And it just takes a line and makes a second line. So used for walls and all kinds of things. But I'm going to use offset and then specify offset distance. I will type in 0.3 and select object. So click. When you do this, I've seen this many, many times. People make the offset outside instead of inside. So make sure you're bringing that inside your piece of paper so you still have 11 by 8.5 on the outside. Okay, so enter. We've now done our offset, and that just shows us the part of the page that our printer can actually put ink onto it. Okay, the next little bit, and I'll come over here to our old one, is we're going to add some rectangles to put things like your name and unit, scale, the project, the day, the class name, company name, revision numbers. Every company has title blocks, and there's 100 different formats for this, but we're going to just keep it super, super simple here. And to do that, I want to take kind of this lower piece of my offset. I'm going to pop it up to 1 inch, and then I'm going to pop that down 0.375, 0.375. I'll grab the middle, pop it over 3, maybe a blank spot over here for logo or some company symbol to put in there. Okay, now an offset object is all one piece. I need 4 different lines instead of a single rectangle here. So I'm going to use the explode command. The shortcut for that is just an X. And I'm going to grab this rectangle, enter, and you'll see now that I've exploded it, each piece of this rectangle is now a separate line. And after it's a separate line, I can then offset, this time 1 inch, this bottom line. And let's see if we can, there's our bottom lines. I'm going to offset that bottom line up 1 inch. So that was a couple different things. So X to explode, and then I have separate individual lines, and then pop that up 1 inch. Okay, I'm going to hit enter. Remember, you don't have to type in the command over and over and over again. If you're using line, 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 circle, 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 offset, 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 just hit enter. It pulls up the previous command. And this time, I don't want 1 inch. I want 0.375 inches. So I'll enter that new offset distance, hit enter, and I'm going to grab this top line, bring it down, and I'm going to bring it down one more time. And now I'm done with offset, so I'm going to hit enter. Those little triangular brackets where it's exit. So if you just hit enter, it's going to do whatever it says in the triangular brackets. Okay, so now we have a couple of different things. I'm going to start up L for line and make sure that I have all of my object snap settings on. If it's not snapping to like the center, only to the input points, I like to just select all, make sure all of those object snap settings are on there. Okay. And with my snap settings on, it'll then grab the midpoint, turns it into a little triangle there. And right in the middle of drawing stuff, you can turn these snaps on and off. So maybe turn that 90-degree angle ortho snap on. That can be helpful. And I'm going to just bring that down, enter. And I'm going to bring in the offset command again. And this time I'm going to go sideways 3 inches. So pop it over 3 inches one side and over 3 inches the other side. And now I have just kind of some lines with grid to start filling in information for name and things. Now over here on this side, I was going to maybe fill that in with a little logo. So under my modify command, a little pair of scissors here. So this is trim. I'm going to click on the scissors and remove these 2 lines. That'll give me a spot to put, picture, company name, something like that. Okay, the next thing is to come over to the Annotate tab, and this is where we have tools for writing text onto, and this is also where dimensions are. So adding how long something is and diameter and angles and all the text tools. There's single line and there's multi-line. I kind of like the multi-line text more because there's options for formatting in here. So I'm going to click multi-line text. And you can do this in the ribbon, but I kind of like to define everything in the middle of the text tool. So notice that I have not put this second point on here yet. I'm not going to define the other piece of my rectangle yet. I'm going to come over here before I'm done and say, let's do the height. So remember, I popped this down 0.375. So maybe for my text, I don't know, 0.35 instead of 0.375. It's not like 12 or 14 point font. It's the height of the text for this. So I'm going to specify the height. And then in these square brackets, I'm also going to click on Justify. So top left, top corner, top right. Let me do middle center. Sorry, that's top center, middle center. So I'm going to say the height, the center. I'm just going to do this one line at a time. So I'm not going to rotate it or do anything like that. But after I have height and justify, now I'm going to then grab that second corner on here and click. So I can type something like, there's my name. Okay. And then hit enter. So that's kind of good. If you go back and say, actually, that's a little bit tall. Maybe I did want to make that a little bit smaller. So take your time with the very first text box that you've created and kind of mess around with it. Does that look a little bit nicer to reduce that text size? So you see, just double click on it and then all of the new menus come up and you can change the fonts and do the line spacing and all of this kind of thing, and then close text editor when you're all done with it. Okay, so now I have something that has the right font, the right orientation, and I'm going to go ahead and copy. The copy is underneath the Home tab, so you can use that button up here, or you can just type copy. So type what you want to do, and then just follow the instructions. So select objects. I'm going to come up here and select my object, enter, specify base point, choosing what corner I want. Think about where you're going to kind of plug it into place. So I guess any of these corners would work well. So there's a corner that I can grab this from. And now I can come down to the next and over to the next and over to the next and just kind of plug these guys in place. I think that last rectangle is a little bit smaller, so we can come over here and resize that box. I think, was this where we put in the class? Ooh, that's really small. So maybe we can change that line justification too. There we go. I'll just keep this super simple. So I'll put the day and the month. See, let's put the month first. Year. Okay, so fill this in. And this is just kind of a default. A lot of companies will already have this set up for you so that you can just start using their templates with all of their settings. Generally, you'll have things like, is this in inches? Is it in centimeters, meters? Is this, when you have, we'll use view base when we get into the 3D commands. The very first ortho view that you put is usually how you define that scale. So if you have to make it a little bit larger or smaller so that it shows up well, and then just the project name, if it's the bridge project or the engine project or what piece or part name it is. Okay, so now we have something with some words in it and it's the right size. But right now, this is in our model space over here. The model space is where you usually draw things. The layouts, this is how we're going to put things onto a piece of paper, send it to your regular old printer. Now, the default is for this to come with a viewport. And I'm not going to be using viewports in here. We're going to be using view base and actually draw it on the piece of paper, so it's not going to resize. If you ever want, so if you remember from the intro, you can always get any number of viewport that you want, so single or double or 4 of them. You just draw a rectangle on there, this little button at the bottom, paper versus model space. So what this is, if you switch it over to model space, like it's like a little window into this other tab down here. And the Mac users that don't have things like the view base command, they can kind of do sort of a cheater version of ortho-views by just using these viewports, but let's not do that. Let's have just everything on our paper. So I'm going to grab the border here, hit the delete key, and start with just a regular piece of paper. Now, I don't know what size this is, so I'm going to right-click on the tab and go to the Page Setup Manager. And for layout number 1, modify. If you have a printer selected, you're going to get limited page sizes because it's going to say, oh, well, that printer can only do these page sizes. So it's much better to start with none, and then you'll have all the different options for all the different pieces of paper. And rather than just saying letter, I'm going to actually go with the ANSI-A. So American National Standard Institute A size paper. And then down here, you can switch to portrait versus landscape. These are the most standard sizes over here. So I'm going to just make one of these layouts landscape. And then I'm going to go to layout number 2. So this is the second tab down here. Oh, it's going to have to, let's go to tab number 2, right click, Page Setup Manager, modify. And again, let's make sure that this is ANSI-A. And the last one is landscape, so let's make this portrait. Close. And again, I'm going to go ahead and delete that viewport over here. So if you click on the little tab, you can change the text. I'm going to say port for portrait. Double click on layout 1, and let's call this the landscape one. And it has kind of some borders in there already. You could ignore that. The next thing I'm going to do is from my model space, I am going to, there's 2 ways to select. If you hold your mouse key down, that's a lasso. If you just click, and if you click left to right, you have to be all the way around something for it to grab it. If you select right to left, anything it touches, it grabs. So just be aware, click to make rectangle, hold it down to lasso, left to right, like maybe I don't want those dimensions, I just want the lines. So this is allowing me to just grab the lines and not the dimensions to select from left to right. When I copy this, if you just use the copy command, you can stay in the model space. Putting it onto your clipboard will allow you to copy it to a different file or to a different tab. So I'm going to go ahead and say copy with, make sure it's not cut, but copy with a base point. And I'm going to grab just this lower corner. So now it's on my clipboard. Come over to landscape, Control V. So Control V will paste it. And unfortunately, this will not snap it to the paper. So you can kind of just use that scroll button to scroll in and out and do what you can to get it lined up. It's not going to be perfect, but it doesn't need to be. Okay, so now I have it on my landscape. If we go over to portrait, this is a different size piece of paper. I'm still going to plop it down here, and then I'll show you the stretch command to make this work. Okay, so let's force this to be the right size. So I am now going to use stretch. How you select it is important. So I'm going to not click on the line. I'm actually clicking over here to the right-hand side of it. So click, and then come across it. So how you select it tells it where it's going to stretch around. So I do have my ortho 90-degree angle snap on, so I can bring this right up. And now I can stretch it to the top corner. The stretch command also lets you smooth it. So again, how you select this is important. I'm going to come underneath it, click underneath it, so not on the line itself, but underneath it. And then everything that I'm touching here is going to stretch. So this is from right to left. Everything I touch gets selected. Click, enter. And now I'm going to come up here and stretch it. Now, after kind of smooshing this down, there's going to be a little bit of trimming I have to do after this. But I grabbed kind of where I guess we just lost our company logo there, but it at least has the text in here. So I'm going to click, and for our landscape, we have a little less info, but we have kind of name, units, project, all the important parts. Okay, so now that we're done with trim, we have our title block created in our landscape, in our portrait. Once it's over there, I'm going to come to my model space and just delete it out of there. So now it's no longer in the model space. We have it landscape and portrait no longer in the model space. And I should have been saving this all alone. Control S is the shortcut to save it. So just kind of get in the habit of saving things. Before I go forward, I'm going to set up just a couple more things for my template. So clicking on this little pile of paper, this is the unique thing for AutoCAD over Inventor Pro, is that I can set this up with a bunch of different layers. So this little first pile of paper adds new layers, and you can click on the name and call this, like, maybe we would like to make one for center lines. If you click on the little color box here, you can change the color. I'm going to go with their suggested bright colors that will show up well on the dark background. And then if you click on the text, so this is a little bit tricky. So you have to click on the word itself, not the line, but on the text itself. Go to load lines. And for the center line, it's in alphabetical order, and I kind of like these 0.5 options. That's not going to be too small or too big. That works for a lot of objects, so okay. And then click on it up here, okay. And now this layer is changed to a new line type. Let me come down here and maybe I'll do one more layer. And this one I will do a construction. So just a dashed line that helps keep things level with other, and choose whatever color you want. This is personal notes for yourself as you're creating something to just help everything line up. And as you go along, you'll kind of learn the different line types and what you like. So this is all just personal preference. And as you go, you can add layers. Maybe you want some electrical or something for the plumbing or something for the furniture, whatever layers you would like on there. And it just depends on the project for what you're going to want to organize and keep track of. So I'll go ahead and make just a hidden, a center line, something to put, maybe one more for notes, like dimensions and stuff. So I'm going to put one more. I'll make this kind of a grayish color and just a solid line, but I'm going to call this one so I can add text to it and remember that things like dimensions, that just, yeah, little notes as you go along. Okay, I'm going to exit out of that. You can always get back to it by just clicking on layer properties. And let me show you how the layers work. So if I'm up here at the 0 line, so I select the line in my 2D drawing tools. And if I start drawing something, you can see that is being drawn with a white line. If I come over here and I select something different, so now I have center line up here and I start a different command. So just see what layer is up here. You can start a different command. And now everything that I draw is going to be in this new layer, right? If I say, oh man, I actually wanted this in that first layer, you can click on an object and then click on a layer and it will move that object into whatever layer you click it into. And the nice thing here is you can then go and turn a layer on or off. So maybe you just want to see the outline or you just want to see like one piece of it. You can take notes and have those for yourself, but then you don't want to actually print it out. So let's do just some notes, right? And you have that on there, but everybody does not need to see that, so you can turn the light bulb on and off. The other thing is maybe you want to make sure that this layer does not get messed with, that people aren't. You can lock things in place, and so that maybe you're over here doing something with your center lines, right? And you want to, I don't know, trim something or change the length, move something around. So if something is locked in place, it says, no, you can't trim that. I can trim this, but I'm not going to be able to mess around or mess up something that is now locked in place. So that's kind of nice. Very, very handy. Okay, so that is the layers. And once you have that set up for your template, you want to kind of just start with a nice blank file that from here on out, when you start a new assignment, you don't have to recreate your layers, recreate your title block. When we get into adding dimensions, there's all kinds of styles to set for your dimensions. So your precision is going to be in here, your text size, how it fits in there. We'll go through a whole unit on tolerances, the different types of tolerances. So just all kinds of little settings that you don't want to mess with every time you start a new folder. So this time around, and this is, just a starter, and you can always go back and resave it. I'm going to come up to the red A and save as, and this time not a drawing, I'm going to create a drawing template. So here we go, drawing template. And this is going to take us over to where Autodesk saves their template. So you can see this is quite a long file path, but if you save it here and say this is maybe 1304 inches standard template, right? So I'm going to save it. So this has portrait and landscape with title block and a few layers set up, right? So put some kind of a little description for what kind of file this is. And then if I go under my start and I say new, and I can say browse templates, it'll pop up. So there's my inches template. And if I've forgotten kind of what that was, it should pop up with a little description. So if I open a new file, Takes a little minute here, so let me wait for it. Drawing 3, and I see that my title block is already set up, ready to go. My layers are set up and ready to go. I can have dim styles, all kinds of stuff ready to go. Now, I'm going to save this again because I won't be able to find that default location of where AutoCAD. So save it 2 different places where AutoCAD wants you to save it, but then also up under your user profile, like in a folder where you can actually find it. For this assignment, turn in your DWT template file showing that you have a few layers set up in your title block, and from here on out, start your new assignments with this template rather than from just the default that AutoCAD had. Okay, so I'll let you guys go ahead, save that, and turn that in as one of your files.